Susan, Mission Management and Trust Company has been in the community, specifically the Tucson community here in Arizona, for almost 30 years.
Yeah, yes, and I've been part of that for nearly 28 years. Mission was the first independent trust company in Tucson, Arizona, and it was started with an eye toward providing services, filling a gap that was unfolding as large financial institutions centralized and abandoned some of the markets where they previously operated. And today we have the largest trust team in Tucson, and we're growing that into other parts of the state and hopefully other parts of the country as well.
That's tremendous. So maybe we could talk a little bit about way back when in the beginning, what that trust landscape looked like in terms of the services that were introduced by Mission Management and Trust Company into the community, and how that's evolved over time. I know there's some core that has remained intact, but also that's evolved.
Sure. So the trust world is, as you know, is kind of an arcane corner of the financial institution world. We don't do lending. We don't take deposits. We don't have credit cards. All the other more typical services that people are most familiar with on a day-to-day basis, we do not do. So we're in kind of a narrow corner. But while it's narrow, we have a lot of depth, and it's a very complex world that we operate within. The services that we started out with are still our core services today. So we serve as an investment manager. We can serve as a trustee. And on the institutional side, we can serve as a custodian. And that's a little bit different part of the world. But it's all kind of connected, because when you're a trustee, you're supposed to have possession of the assets. You're supposed to be responsible for the assets. So that's partly how we got there. And the landscape has changed quite a bit. In particular, the giant institutions that have gotten larger and larger and have gotten further and further away from the end client, the beneficiary that needs assistance. And that's where we step in and fill a gap. So that's very significant. And I'm reminded of a story where one of our trust officers asked a competitor a number of years ago, when was the last time you had been in someone's home? And it had been 22 years since that individual had been in someone's home. We want to be part of our clients' lives. We want to be there and be able to help them when they need us most, while at the same time honoring the professionalism that we bring to the table as well.
So it's important, I think, to emphasize that it's not just about money management, right? To serve in that role as fiduciary or specifically trustee.
Correct. And actually, I learned from a client of ours who lived to be 100 years old. In fact, she started with us when she was about 77. And as she got into her 90s, she started out early on. She was kind of very focused on the money. Well, how are you going to manage my money? But over time, that became less and less important to her, and the quality of her life is what mattered. And she knew that we were going to take care of her. And I've seen that happen with other clients as well. As they age, they finally go, okay, I've got enough to live. Mission's going to take good care of me. And so I'm going to give them the latitude to do that. And the same way a caregiver or a family member might serve under a healthcare power of attorney, if we're serving as trustee, we're going to take care of that person financially and all of their needs.
So when we talk about what many might refer to as the traditional fiduciary or trustee services, what would you highlight in terms of that for Mission Management and Trust Company? Trust services and estate settlement services?
Sure. So there's kind of two phases. The first phase is while someone is alive. Let's say they've named Mission as a successor trustee for them, and things are changing for them cognitively, or they had a major stroke that now makes it near impossible for them to manage their financial affairs. Mission will come in, get familiar with all of their financial circumstances, organize all that, keep track of all that. We may be filing their tax returns on their behalf, and really step in and be in their shoes, if you will, to take care of them. So that's pretty much on the financial side.
And then when they pass away, then you have to pivot into a different role or posture.
Correct. So while we might still be successor trustee, we might also be serving as personal representative. And there are different kinds of duties involved when it comes to settling an estate. There's a lot more work there than meets the eye. Sometimes we have clients that have come in and they've done it for a parent, or they've done it for another family member or a friend. And it's hard for them to do it because they don't have all the resources that we have, especially the systems work and the expertise that we have and the experience that we have doing all that, familiarity with the legal requirements around working under a trust and that kind of a thing. So that's all part of it. And sometimes we settle it and then funds disperse. Sometimes there's a settlement process and then there's a trust that endures for some other reason, for some other purpose. Sometimes it's a charitable purpose. Sometimes there are beneficiaries that it needs to continue for. We see that latter part in particular when a parent maybe has concerns about a family member's ability to manage their own financial affairs well and not squander the funds, or maybe they've had some problems with alcohol abuse or drug abuse somewhere in their life, and so the parent is a little bit cautious for that reason as well.
And you could also have arrangements where there are minor children that we're managing until such time as they're in a position in their adulthood to take that on, and or, as we've discussed, special needs trusts for individuals with disabilities.
Right. You know, there are as many different kinds of trusts, and I don't mean really categories, but so in terms of just how things need to get implemented as there are families and situations that come to us. You can take what is essentially the same document for one family. It might be perfectly appropriate and fit another family, but their individual circumstances will be different, and we have to account for those circumstances as we administer the trust. So they might have different income needs or different abilities because of their incapacity or something along those lines. The same document can have very different outcomes along the way. And actually, we see that sometimes with different trusts that get created for different children even.
Most certainly. And so, and additionally, when we are serving as trustee, we typically or historically have typically taken custody of the assets into mission management and trust company, and then as part of our fiduciary role, manage those assets in terms of their investment.